Pleasant good morning to all who are joining us, both in person here. Good morning to the members of the press who are in person and online, as well as all of you who are following us across all of our social media platforms. And welcome to the Opposition's weekly press conference. As usual, a lot has happened in the last week, and the opposition has to come to speak to the population about the concerns that it has about things that are happening both inside of the parliament and on the streets and communities across this country. Joining me today are Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, Mr. Hans de Veens, Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, Mr. Brian Manning, and the Chairman of the People's National Movement and our Chief Whip, Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, the Member of Parliament for Aruca Lopino. Still getting accustomed to those changes, member. So we want to move as quickly as possible, and we will go straight into it. And I want to invite Hans to the podium.
Thank you very much, Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central, the Honourable Simon Dino Brega, to my parliamentary colleagues and to members of the media. Good morning to you, and a special good morning to all our cultural practitioners in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be pan men, stick fighters, DJs, MCs, the full line, the dancers, every member of our cultural community in Trinidad and Tobago, especially those as well who play the traditional mask characters. As we know, culture is the lifeblood of our nation. We are in the thick of the season, fresh off of the energy of the savannah. I want to say congratulations to Young King Rivaldo London, but I want to congratulate every single steel band that competed in the semi-finals. From the sponsor giants to the small unsponsored bands that fought to get on that stage, your excellence is a testament to the people, not the government's policy. You have proven once again that our culture is not noise, it is our identity. But while the music continues to be loud, the warning bells for the industry are even louder. We're turning your attention today to the corporate exodus. The president of Pan Trinbago has sounded the alarm in a recent article. Sponsorship has plummeted from 30 major partners to a ghost town. And you ask yourself, why is corporate Trinidad and Tobago running away? In a Guardian article by Jessie Ramdeo, she stated, "We have taken a significant blow in terms of sponsorship, and that is why I always say as leaders, we have to be careful of the messages that we send." The government of Trinidad and Tobago not showing that corporate support for Trinidad and Tobago sends a message to the businesses. By them not providing funding, it causes doubt in the minds of corporate Trinidad and Tobago in terms of where we are going. Now, further on in the article, they say based on us having those state companies pulling out their support from the steel ban, it sends a trickle-down effect. Last year, we had over 30 sponsors for semi-finals, and this year, I don't think we have 10. For 2026, we have been struggling, and you may not see the glitz and glamour that you want to see on stage. Musically, they are excellent. And community-wise, I think that the communities have been supporting the band. It's because the bands are the community's soul, and that is what is important. So whilst one of our government senators continues to criticize and quite frankly disrespect the Pan Trinbago president, we have to take note that government policy and what government cares about is based and shown by where they put their financial commitment, and corporate Trinidad and Tobago will follow. So what did the minister do to try to cover for the rest of her administration's faux pas and disrespect to the steel pan fraternity? She boasts of a $2.3 million grant for 145 unsponsored bands. Now, if we do the math, that is clearly a one-off political band-aid. That doesn't do what needs to be done in terms of buying instruments, paying for sticks, and it certainly does not fund the youth programs that keep panyards alive throughout the year. In Parliament, I asked the Minister for a sustainable plan and asked her what is the way that the ministry is going to support these pan bans. And the silence was deafening. Truth be told, if sponsors are retreating, it signals confidence issues, economic governance incentives, and uncertainty. And even recently, we saw the Minister of Public Utilities look to gain points by using his office to have one of the utility companies under his purview partially sponsor a band in his constituency, Couva Joylanders, with a one-off contribution. I want the public to take note that this band was fully sponsored previously by NGC before this government came into office, and NGC was not a one-off sponsor in that instance. They sponsored many programs for development for Couva Joylanders. So we are not fooled, but we are, however, disappointed in the minister and this measly one-off contribution. Now, we're still on PAN, and it's interesting how all things affect all things. So the sea bridge affecting PAN. This government in this very short space of time has collapsed the sea bridge between Trinidad and Tobago. We're seeing less food on shelves in Tobago supermarkets, and one of my colleagues will touch on that a little later. But in the case of PAN Medium Finals, Panorama Medium Finals is usually held in Tobago. It's been so for the past few years. And it's Tobago's opportunity to experience the national instrument in a real way. Luckily, through the ingenuity and the resilience of the PAN community, PAN Trinbago has been able to make up for the government's failure by organizing to have the medium band finals in Trinidad. Now, this is success for PAN Trinbago, but it marks a clear failure on the part of the government. And just something to note, when we're talking about culture and funding, based on the emails that have been sent to applicants applying to the Sport and Culture Fund, there's currently no Sport and Culture Fund board. And I ask, just a simple question, is money currently being disbursed by the Sport and Culture Fund with no board approval and being controlled by a UNC senator to help a league that occurs in the Etihad grounds in Tacarigua? A simple question. Masses in the ICU. So we know there's been alcohol tax. Staggering increases in customs duties have devoured profit margins for band leaders. Band leaders now have to look at avenues where they will have to cut and absorb increased cost somehow. The trickle-down effects due to the draconian, questionable, and flawed fiscal decisions of this government are clear. And while some may say bands are sold out, what I ask you to look at as well is the resale market. People are selling their costumes because they simply cannot afford them. When we look at tickets for flights to come into Trinidad and Tobago for the first time in many years, probably since the COVID-19 pandemic just finished, there's the opportunity to be able to buy tickets to come from New York to Trinidad and Tobago right now. There are flights available. This is not the norm. For Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, it is usually impossible at this stage to get a flight. If you log on to Caribbean Airlines or any other site right now, you can get a flight to Trinidad and Tobago. And whilst I invite the entire world as a patriot to come to Trinidad and Tobago, the signs are very clear that there's a lack of confidence in this government's approach to Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. They are making things more expensive, which is making other carnivals throughout the region a lot more attractive, and the signs are clear. When you speak to real estate agents, they will tell you there are many properties that are usually rented for Carnival that are available right now, and they're scampering and are offering these properties at negotiable rates. These are not things that I am guessing. These are facts. These are things that I have spoken to the stakeholders about, and they are real. So take a look into that. Now, we know there are estimates that a visitor experience could be US $8,000 to $10,000 based on flights, accommodations, fetes, costumes, etc. But we are seeing the decline. We are seeing smaller events. We are seeing events cancelled. Last year we had 254. This year we have 150 fêtes. And it's not just because it's a shorter season, it is because promoters have had to pull out of the market. Higher burdens, higher cost. Thinner margins, fewer sponsors, smaller events, fewer opportunities. And this year, it is a weaker carnival, despite the minister trying to fool the people and tell us it is going to be a richer, bigger, brighter carnival. And I'll turn your attention to regional carnivals. Now, there are regional carnivals with some regions mentioning exclusion of individuals that are normally involved in the preparations being excluded for UNC party members to be included. And other committees left in the dark, while some are able to throw grand launches. Today we focus a little bit on San Fernando Regional Carnival. Up to yesterday, the minister went into her usual defensive spew that is activated whenever she cannot answer a basic question, and said if the San Fernando Carnival Committee cannot manage their affairs, it will be managed. Well, let's look at what has actually happened. The San Fernando Carnival Committee consulted with band leaders, TTPS, municipal police, and stakeholders within the city of San Fernando. There was a decision taken not unilaterally, but it was based on everything happening. There was a formal letter written, confirmation received on the 30th of January 2026, where the San Fernando Carnival Committee was trying to ascertain what would be their allocation. The mayor was advised that the allocation would be $700,000 after trying to get an answer since September 2025. At no point prior to Friday 30th January, the mayor was formally or informally advised verbally or in writing that the indicated allocation of $700,000 would be reduced. However, on Friday 30th of January, they received a check and a confirmation that the allocation would be $500,000, $200,000 less. On Monday, 2nd February, the San Fernando Carnival Committee, they did a consultation with their stakeholders, and a decision was taken that they are not going to judge the competition. However, they will have their parades of the bands, they will have their band participation, they will have registration, and registration fees will be waived. A people-centered decision-making process and approach to deliver Carnival to San Fernando. But instead, you have a minister trying to go back and forth, trying to convince everyone that she cares about San Fernando by saying her whole family plays Juve in South, and if the Carnival Committee cannot manage the Carnival in San Fernando, then it will be managed by the people. It is managed by the right people, and the people that are managing it is the San Fernando Carnival Committee. The other matter that I'll touch on quickly is the recent statement that there's a plan to tax carnival artists. And whilst the conversation may be focused on singers, when you talk about carnival artists, we talk about pan players, arrangers, dancers, those that play traditional characters, DJs, MCs, songwriters, producers. Taxes are a legal requirement, and there are a lot of things that promoters are required to pay, including VAT, if your receipts are over $600,000, income tax, corporation tax, green levy fund, deduct withholding tax for foreign artists, local artists. There are things that they are required to pay, band leaders as well. But compliance without consultation feels like enforcement by surprise. At least two promoters, Randy Glasgow and George Singh, said they have been VAT registered for years and they are compliant. Band leaders like Leola Khan, Ricky Davidson, and Morgana Beach said these taxes came like a thief in the night. There are concerns regarding venues and the access to venues. It clearly impacted the carnival industry with reported event cancellations and claims of rent spikes, increase in alcohol, and in all of this you say you're going to come harder on these practitioners and enforce taxes. So the minister came in a conference in their usual backpedaling manner to say no immediate plan to tax carnival. Now, this is a government that told us we would get back our contributions in terms of property tax. That has not happened. So we await to see what happens, and we actually saw recently NCC is saying they will do a economic review of Carnival, and we look on attentively to see how that will affect cultural practitioners being attacked by this government that continues to tax, and more tax the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The minister talks about restructuring NCC and Carnival 365. Let's be very clear. You cannot talk about Carnival 2027 when you're killing the stakeholders of Carnival 2026. Restructuring the NCC right now, that is like deciding to polish the brass on the Titanic while the ship is sinking. Minister Benjamin talks about evolving the sector, but you cannot evolve what you are currently strangling with taxes, late funding, a lack of corporate confidence. This isn't Carnival 365 right now for most stakeholders. This is Carnival 0. Survive to try to stay alive. Even when you look at TTT, our National Broadcasting Network, a media company which encompasses TTT, Talk City, Suite 100, and Next 99.1, where many professionals have been sent home. We see once again the result of that. Next 99.1 pavement line has been cancelled in different locations after 15 years, which further shows that the UNC cannot run this place. Even in the simplest ways, it is being demonstrated over and over and over. Next 99.1 pavement line was an avenue for many new artists and for many people to see their favorite artists for free in various locations around Trinidad and Tobago. And this being cancelled is a further signal of the way this government treats culture and cultural practitioners. What I demand from the minister: immediate transparency, release the data on the corporate sponsorship slum, the lack of incentives, the total lack of confidence in leadership. We're talking taxes, and she said there's no immediate decision to tax the cultural practitioners. Well, then make it clear. Have a tax moratorium based on the way that the cultural practitioners and the effects of the government's policies have been hurting and hitting the people of Trinidad and Tobago, specifically the cultural practitioners. And again, proper engagement with stakeholders. People may not remember this, but when the Promoters Association was supposed to meet with the Minister of Culture, she absented herself from that meeting. She was not there. She did not make herself present to have a conversation with the promoters. Yet these same promoters are the ones that we are looking to tax the most. I asked the minister to engage with stakeholders. So for everyone here and everyone locked on, Carnival is strong because of the people. Our concerns are sustainability and pressure, financial governance, and industry confidence. Carnival is a national asset. Right now, it is under siege. And I know the government is trying to create a narrative that PNM feels like we own Calypso. There's no other political party or group of individuals that have been criticized and mocked by Calypsonians than the People's National Movement. From Captain the Ship is Sinking to now it's your turn from Mr. Shack last year, from Kurt Allen last year, we have taken the criticism and we have supported the art form because the art form tells us and shows us who we really are. Because this current administration cannot take the criticism, they send their proxies in competitions and on stages to say PNM feel they own Calypso. We don't feel we own Calypso. What we do is care about Trinidad and Tobago and care about Trinidad and Tobago culture. Respect the art form. And whilst the Prime Minister, I close with this. Whilst the Prime Minister may continue to tell the population we need to behave ourselves, I quote A.N. Voice St. Louis in reminding her and the Minister of Culture, I come to defend the things, stand firm and poised. I know my ancestors go agree with my choice. I'm sure this music is more than noise. I can't behave myself. And to the general public, we wish you a safe and enjoyable carnival. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Hans, for pointing out not just the issues that are directly impacting the orange economy, but also the way that the mismanagement of other sectors by this government are also impacting Calypso and Pan in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on, there is one issue I would like to raise with you all, particularly as a former practitioner in the local government sphere. You will remember that at the start of this month, the opposition leader, who is also the political leader of the People's National Movement, issued a release warning the population to be vigilant as the UNC pushes the municipal boundaries reform via a partisan cabinet-appointed committee. And in that release, the Honorable Penelope Beckles pointed to the fact that this initiative encroaches, and I'm quoting from her press release, this initiative encroaches on the constitutional role of the Elections and Boundaries Commission and raises serious concerns about political manipulation of electoral districts to entrench the ruling party. Now, as would be expected, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government came out and dismissed those allegations, as she called them, as being divisive and just mischief. But I want to drill home to you all who are here and to you who are joining us online that the opposition leader had a clear and real reason to raise this issue. First of all, the Constitution allows for certain things when it comes to the creation, demarcation, changing of boundaries. Under, I believe it is Section 71 and Section 72 of the Constitution. And in those sections, and along with the Local Government Act, the Electoral Boundaries Commission is the entity with the sole authority over the issue of boundaries in this country. And just to point out that I believe it is 7112. The 7112 in the Constitution states that the Elections and Boundaries Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority. That is a very, very important statement that is entrenched in our Constitution. And it is there to protect the EBC from cabinet pressure. It is there to protect the EBC from political influence. And it is there to protect the EBC from rogue ministers who would want to utilize their majority in order to pass legislation and to make fundamental changes that will entrench the ruling party for all time. Now, I want to be clear. The PNM's position, much like the PNM's position that Hans would have raised, is that we are not in control of the EBC. We respect the autonomy and the authority of the EBC. There has been no party in this government, in this country, that has been impacted more by the shifting of boundaries than the PNM. We have had large areas where we know the party has support moved and subsumed into what would be described as opposition territory. So while we defend this, we also know that their role on autonomy very often does not work in the favor of our political party. But a party in governance cannot be concerned wholly and solely with what keeps them in power. It is about ensuring that authority and entities like autonomous entities like the EBC are respected. But this issue also goes to the issue of trust. And I think it is safe to say from this podium that the trust that the population has in this UNC government has been steadily eroded over the last almost 10 months now. And the country does not trust that this committee that has been set up by the minister will be a non-partisan committee only concerned with what it describes as ensuring that representation of the electorate is better served maybe with the shifting of boundaries. The Minister of Local Government, in her dismissal of the opposition leader's statements, said, and I'm quoting from, I believe it is a Guardian article. I'm sorry if I don't have the date, but I'm sure it can be found easily. It is a cabinet-appointed committee led by a retired former director of planning at Town and Country Planning and former acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government. She continued to say that the local government, the senior technocrat, this relating to the chairman, saying that the chairman is a senior technocrat with decades of professional experience and no current political affiliation. Through her statements, what the minister would have this population believe is that this is a committee that has no political affiliation, non-partisan. Her words. What the minister did not tell the population in this article or since is that the same chairman whose qualifications and experience I do not call into question in any way whatsoever. But she's a director of the RDC, a director of the board. And any director of the board is a political appointee. So let me read out for the population who the members of this committee are. And this is taken from the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government's Facebook page, dated 28th of November 2025. The committee includes Ms. Tara Ramlogan, Chairman, Director of RDC. Mr. Feroz Khan, committee member. I believe Mr. Feroz Khan was the campaign manager of the UNC's 2025 general election and also serves as the chairman of the HEC and other positions. Ms. Sabrina Maula Baksh, Ms. Chrislyn Moore, Dr. Asad Mohammed, who I believe is a former chair of the National Planning Task Force under a former iteration of the UNC. Dr. Alan Sami, a former chairman of the Penal Debe Corporation, a UNC-led corporation. Mr. Vijay Gosain, I hope I've pronounced his name correctly. Mr. Cornelius Price, and I ask the media to confirm if this Mr. Cornelius Price is also the Mr. Cornelius Price, who is a former program director of Life Sport. Mr. Lennox Sankar Singh, Mr. Peter Kanai, a former chairman of the UNC, and Mr. Dinesh Sankar Singh, who is a former chairman of the Siparia Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, does that sound like a non-political committee setup? Does that sound like a non-partisan committee setup to look at the way municipal corporations are configured, the number of corporations, the boundaries, separate and apart from the role of the EBC? And I actually, not that I need to bat for the EBC, but I think that the EBC was quite right in saying that they are not part of this consultation because they have to protect their own integrity. This board is clearly a political den of iniquity. I have no doubt, as a member of the opposition, that the intention of this board, no matter what the minister says, it is here for all to see in black and white. This is a political board that is set up to do political business, and the persons who are represented by whether it is a councillor, an alderman, or a member of parliament will be directly impacted by political decisions taken by the board set up by Minister I.A.N. I leave that there as a further example of the erosion of trust that happens on a daily basis with this government when it comes to the way citizens see political appointees and governance in general. I will now move on to Member of Parliament for San Fernando East, MP Brian Manning.
Thank you, dear colleague. Good morning, everyone. Let's not mince words. We are being lied to by this government. There's no two ways about it. They came into office on a campaign of lies, and they continue to try to govern this country with a litany of lies. Everywhere we turn, they try to say or do something to distract us from the truth of what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. Recently, you would have heard from the Minister of Finance that there was a $1 billion bond refinancing which took place. The Minister of Finance did his roadshow abroad, immediately came back and held a press conference declaring that this refinancing effort was a success. I believe this Minister of Finance would be the only person in this country that would call that refinancing effort a success. 10 years ago, the previous government took out $1 billion bond on the international markets at an interest rate of 4.5%. Now, your interest rate is a reflection of your ability to repay. If you have the ability to repay, it reduces your default risk, so you get a lower interest rate. The current Minister of Finance, instead of repaying this bond, because how the bond is structured, you make interest payments every year, and then in the final year of the bond, you make a bullet payment of the principal, which is $1 billion. Instead of repaying the $1 billion principal, the Minister of Finance decides to take out another loan to pay that bullet payment, which is how the refinancing works. And he does that at an interest rate of 6.5%, 2 percentage points higher than your original interest payment on that bond. That means that for the next decade, the people of Trinidad and Tobago will be making interest payments on $1 billion bond of $65 million annually, which is almost $500 million TT dollars payment annually on a loan on which adds absolutely no capacity to Trinidad and Tobago because it was used to refinance a previous bond. The Minister of Finance decides to come to the people of this country and say that he is not kicking the can down the road and that he is not leaving a debt burden for future generations. Folks, any right-thinking, logical person can see that that is completely untrue. That bond, or those annual payments, are going to create a dramatic drag on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is a reflection of the fact that this Minister of Finance and this government has absolutely no idea what they are doing. They have no plans, they have no way of saying exactly how they intend to repay this $1 billion bond. So they take out another one for 10 years and they hope whoever's in office then will have to figure it out. Recently, if you were paying attention, you would have seen that this government has investors in this country from the UAE and I believe a handful of other Middle Eastern countries. They brought investors here attempting to get some foreign direct investment into the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. I want the people of Trinidad and Tobago to take careful note of the treatment those investors got from the People's National Movement as opposed to what investors got when the PNM was in office. The UNC did everything possible to denigrate, insult, and to scare off every single foreign direct investor in this country while the PNM was in office. From Sandals to Jindal to the Dragon deal, Well, I don't know what it is they didn't call the current president of Venezuela. I don't know what derogatory name they didn't call the lady. And now they have to run back to her cap in hand, asking to renegotiate the very same dragon deal that they lied about before the election of last year, saying that they would cancel it. Now they have to review it because they have no other options of generating foreign exchange to manage this country or to repay any of our debts. So where is our economy going? The Minister of Finance and this government has said nothing about how it is they intend to invest in this country. Keep in mind, the People's National Movement is hoping that this government can attract foreign investors into Trinidad and Tobago. We would never denigrate those who would want to invest in our people and to create opportunity. And that is the stark difference and reality between the People's National Movement and the UNC. We put country first. And we don't just pay that lip service. You can see it for yourselves. Let's take a look at what was recently announced also in the manufacturing sector, where NGC has proposed a gas price increase. Now, for those who don't know, the manufacturing sector of Trinidad and Tobago is the largest generator of foreign exchange outside of the energy sector. That's the manufacturing sector. And the main competitive advantage of our manufacturing sector is the low-cost energy that it can produce in its operations. It has a much lower cost structure than many of the manufacturers across the region. And because of it, Trinidad and Tobago manufacturers dominate store shelves across the entire region and beyond. You go to any country within CARICOM and the Caribbean, you will see Trinidad and Tobago products on their shelves. It's because other countries cannot compete against the cost structure of manufacturers in Trinidad and Tobago. We have the lowest because their feedstock, which is gas, coming from the NGC, is competitively priced in an industry that tends to be relatively low margin. What we have proposed here by our clueless Minister of Finance and also the equally clueless chairman of the NGC is a 76 to 77% hike in the gas price being offered to manufacturers. Now, this government, in its clumsiness, has decided to just slap taxes across the board on everyone. There isn't a practitioner in the world that will tell you that when you're implementing taxes in a country, that you should implement taxes to that degree, because sometimes you can have outcomes that you did not predict. So generally, if there's a tax increase, it's usually done incrementally. It's done 10% at a time, 5%, 15%. Not this Minister of Finance, 100% increases across the board on everyone. And what that has done is completely destroyed industries across Trinidad and Tobago. In the retail sector, in the entertainment sector, and now they're attempting to do the same in the manufacturing sector. Minister of Finance, how do you intend to increase tax revenues from industries and businesses that no longer exist? The Minister of Finance is single-handedly putting entire industries in this country out of business in a desperate attempt to increase his revenues. If you increase the taxes and payments on this manufacturing sector, you are going to reduce the size of the sector. And let me also, as I look here, the manufacturing sector roughly contributes 18 to 19% of GDP. 18 to 19%. Employment provides jobs for over 50,000 permanent workers and about 10,000 casual workers. That's 60,000 people. Exports, non-energy manufacturing exports, have grown at an average of 18% annually. I'm pretty sure that number is going to change by the end of the year to a decline, because the previous government for 10 years had been implementing several facilities and several initiatives attempting to boost our manufacturing sector, because we knew how important the sector is to the ability to generate foreign exchange for this country. We have seen strong performance in food and beverage, chemicals, and packaging. All of these industries are being eroded by this government because they just simply have no ideas and have no idea what they are doing. Folks, at every turn, we see that this government is doing its best and clumsily destroying this economy, and it needs to stop. When they came into office, they made many promises. They made promises to the public servants saying that they would get a certain amount of back pay, 10%, whatever it is. Many have not received that 10% to date. But I'm saying to public servants and others, whatever back pay you are to receive from this government will all go right back into the coffers of this very same government due to a higher cost of living and the ridiculous increase in taxes across the board. Everything they have done will completely increase the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago, and whatever results they hope to get, it will not materialize. Because as I said earlier, you cannot increase tax revenues from businesses and industries that no longer exist. This government is killing the goose. That is what they're doing. So we are asking that the Minister of Finance please take the time, first of all, to start telling the truth to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Please tell the truth. This bond is not a success. An interest rate from 4.5% to 6.5 and $500 million in annual payments on a bond that we have to repay in 10 years for $1 billion with no plan for generating that $1 billion could never be a success for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. While you are also destroying many of the other sectors in this country that we depend on to generate very much said US dollars, including, as we heard earlier from my colleague, the carnival sector. Folks, thank you so much for your attention today. And I ask the Minister of Finance to please reconsider the path that he is on, because a lot of people are being hurt. And sadly, it is going to be the poor and vulnerable that have been hurt the most. This government has waged war on the poor in this country, and the People's National Movement will not stand idly by and allow that to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Manning. I think Brian has laid it out clearly for us again. The recurring reality that what is said is not what actually exists. People's National Movement continues to be very, very concerned about where this country is going across all sectors. And with that in mind, I ask the Member of Parliament for Rukalopino to join us to discuss some issues of further grave concern.
Thank you very much, my colleague from Diego Martin Central. And also want to recognize again my colleague from Diego Martin West, Hans, and San Fernando East, Brian. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This morning I want to raise a matter that I regard on behalf of the opposition of critical national importance. I'm doing so to let you know that oftentimes what you see takes place on a weekly basis in the Parliament, where the opposition asks questions of the government through urgent questions, questions on notice, questions for written responses, Prime Minister's questions. You would see there's a pattern of behavior on the part of the government to invoke standing orders to not answer those critical questions and to account on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. One such example occurred last week, Friday, when the Minister of Homeland Security was asked two very important questions. And you would expect that a minister deserving to be called a minister and deserving to serve in the government of Trinidad and Tobago would seize upon the opportunity to answer any reasonable questions posed by the opposition. One of the questions I asked the minister was whether or not he's prepared, as Minister of Homeland Security, to give the public an assurance that there's going to be an independent investigation to the matter of the Samaru killing. And the minister, not seizing the opportunity to give the population this assurance, invoked Standing Orders 27(1)G not to respond to the question in the public's interest. A question that was posed in the public interest to ensure, asking the minister and the government whether they are going to ensure a full, transparent, and independent investigation, the minister is using the same standing orders not to give the assurance in the public's interest. The second question I asked the minister was whether or not he can say what support the government and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service might be giving to the Samaru family in light of what is taking place. The minister not seizing the opportunity being presented to him by the opposition, and any minister that is deserving to be called a minister would be happy to come to Parliament and answer this very important question. What support are you giving to the Samaru family? The minister, not seizing upon the opportunity, invoked Standing Order 27-1G not to answer the question in the public's interest. So it is not in the public's interest, according to him and the government, for the population not to know what support is being given, if any at all, to the Samaru family. And what is very disconcerting of this behavior is that you would expect members of the government to hang their collective heads in shame when their colleague behave in this manner. They thumb their desks to support that kind of behavior. And they laugh and they jeer at the opposition. This morning, I want to bring to your attention another matter that I raised in the Parliament through questions for written responses. Because sometimes the information that we want to get from the government, the timeline that is given to us in accordance with the standing orders, we will not get the government to account and to provide the information in the public's interest, not 27-1G, mind you. So, based on information coming to the opposition, as Shadow Minister of Public Utilities, and given my experience in that portfolio that I had the privilege and the honor to serve, I filed two questions to the Minister of Public Utilities. And the questions were very simple. Indicate the number of persons that were employed in the Water and Sewage Authority from April the 29th to the time I filed the question, which was in November. That was the time I filed the question. So April the 29th, which was the day after the elections, to November. Number of persons employed in the Water and Sewage Authority. The names of those persons employed during that timeline. The salaries being paid to those persons. And the recruitment criteria utilized by WASA to employ those persons. The minister had up to the 25th of December last year to respond. And of course he didn't respond. And it's only last week he decided to respond. There are some other questions I filed, but that will be for another news conference. I can't give you all everything today, because I myself have to take some time to digest some of the things that I'm getting inside of there. But Brian said it. They campaign on lies, and they will continue to govern with lies. I want to remind you, they campaign on lies, and they will govern with lies. So I asked the questions of the minister to provide the information for me via written response, and I got the response that I got. They did not provide the recruitment process that was used to employ those persons. They did not provide me with the names of those persons, but I want to assure him, and I want to assure you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, they could run, but they can't hide. I will get the information on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, but based on what I have this morning, I will share with you. Last week, you would have heard that the director of HR was fired. He was actually escorted out of the compound by the security in Wassa. And I'll tell you why that happened. When the questions were filed, of course, the ministry had to find out from the board, okay, how many persons you've employed, how much you're paying them, the names, etc. And my information is that when the question was filed by the opposition, the ministry was taken by surprise, the minister was taken by surprise, the board was taken by surprise, because when the answer or the question was asked of the management of WASA, how many persons were employed between April the 29th and November 2025, the information that came to us, or to them, now the opposition, and now to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, is that WASA employed 420 people. 420 people. Now, let me remind you that it was on Friday, the 15th of May, 2025. You recall a WASA transformation plan created under PNM, its PNM predecessor. In making this announcement at a post-cabinet news conference at the Red House in Port of Spain on Thursday, May the 15th, Prasad Bisesa ripped up a copy of major state utility agency so that we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, can get a reliable supply of water. You see, they could run, but they can't hide. Just give them time, and they were going to show their hands, their dirty hands, because they are all a political den of iniquity, according to my colleague from Diego Martin Central. Among the ministers applauding Prasad Bisesa's action was Labour Minister Leroy Baptiste. Prasad Bisesa said, today, the cabinet rescinded the previous cabinet decision of the PNM to, according to her, brutalize, demonize, and attack WASA workers. Nothing in that transformation plan is saying that we are going to brutalize, demonize, and attack WASA workers. It was an opportunity to transform a major state utility agency. But this is what she said. She added that changes to WASA's management structure have resulted in a savings of $30 million annually. This is what the Prime Minister said, that the changes in the executive structure would result in $30 million. And immediately after she said that, the opposition convened a press conference at Balize House, where we demonstrated the lies of Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesa and the Minister of Public Utilities, that in fact, the WASA transformation plan would have saved WASA approximately $50 million. We are now in February 2025. WASA has employed up to November last year 420 persons or 26 persons, as they have indicated in their response to my questions in the parliament. And according to them, because I asked how much money they are being paid, what was the recruitment criteria? And when we did the calculation, the 420 people that were employed as of November last year, it will cost you, the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago, upwards of $60 million. $60 million. She ripped apart a transformation plan that was going to streamline the management of WASA from 426. By the way, it's 426 again, you know. 400, that says something about 426 that they like. I need to consult some spiritual person because they might be hiding something in that too. But 426 managers. And this plan was to streamline the management of WASA to save you, the taxpayers, hundreds of millions of dollars so that the money being pumped into WASA can be utilized to improve the supply of water all over Trinidad and Tobago and to upgrade WASA's failing infrastructure. 426 persons employed. They cannot say what was the recruitment criteria, how those persons were employed. Maybe Twiggy and Matara may know. Maybe Stark Entertainment may know. Come and tell us. Tell us. Come and tell us. Twiggy may bring her bell to ring and she might tell you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, what was the recruitment criteria, what was your educational qualification to fill the post. Come on, Twiggy, come and tell us. The people of Trinidad and Tobago want to know, because when you are prepared to accept state salaries, it cannot be hidden under a table, under a bed. One day it will be told to the population, you can run, but you cannot hide. $60 million. And the information that has come to me is that as of December last year, there are over 500 to 600 persons that were employed in the Water and Sewage Authority, costing you, the taxpayers of this country, over $70 million. But she appeared before Madam Prime Minister in a news conference, ripping apart a WASA transformation plan, saying that it's going to save you, the taxpayers, $30 million, and they are now riding the taxpayers' backs of this country with an increased salary tag of over $70 million. Last week, the director of HR was escorted out of the compound. The information reaching me and the opposition is that some of those persons that were employed in the Water and Sewage Authority had to pay $5,000 and $10,000 to be employed within the organization. $5,000 or $10,000 to people within the management of WASA to be employed. And I want to ask the minister in Port of Spain here today, tell us why the director, Mr. Mervyn Gibson, who had a close affiliation with the Public Services Association, why he was escorted out of the compound. If the opposition was not alert to do its work on behalf of the population of Trinidad and Tobago, what I'm telling you here today would have been hidden in the dark. They campaign on lies and they will govern with lies. They campaign on lies, they will govern with lies. When I look at some of the figures, Director of Customer Care is getting $60,000 a month. The Director of Human Resources, $60,000 a month. The Director of Operations, $60,000 a month. Head Organizational Effectiveness, you ever hear that? Head Organization, what is a Head Organizational Effectiveness? Then what is the role of the CEO? He is getting $45,000 a month, or she, I don't know if it is a man or a woman. Head Procurement, 45, it perhaps might be a ghost. Head Workforce Optimization, $45,000 a month. Senior Program Leader, $45,000 a month. And given the amount of program leader, it is not just 45, it's 6 of them they employed in WASA. 6 program leader, each of them getting $45,000 a month with a monthly tag of $270,000. The total wage bill has gone up to close to $70 million inside of WASA. And the Prime Minister in May last year, on the 14th of May, ripping a transformation plan and selling it to you, the population of this country, that it is going to save WASA $30,000. They are a bunch of diabolical and dangerous liars. A bunch of diabolical and dangerous liars, because what she has brought on the people of Trinidad and Tobago is a political den of iniquity. What this signifies is a breakdown of governance in the state sector. And therefore, it should not surprise any one of us here in Trinidad and Tobago why the board of HDC, under the leadership of Feroz Khan, wake up one morning, impose decisions affecting hundreds and thousands of HDC homeowners, and David Lee, for the second time, not aware, caught in the dark. Because you have David Lee on one end of the political spectrum, Feroz Khan directly reporting to the Prime Minister, they're doing their own thing outside of the cabinet, because they can't tell us whether the decision of the HDC was in fact a decision approved by the cabinet, when it was approved by the cabinet, and why it wasn't reported to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So again, David Lee left in the dark. And two junior ministers doing what they do best, blogging when the day comes, cannot show nothing what they are doing on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and they are disgrace to the citizens of this country. All of them should go and make room for someone who can come in that ministry and work for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Exactly what you are seeing is a breakdown of corporate governance in HDC, is a breakdown of corporate governance in WASA, and a breakdown of corporate governance all across the state boards and state sectors, because all they are doing is bringing their friends, their families, and their political cronies to mismanage the people of this country. And I move finally to the Sea Bridge. You all recall somebody dressing in some suit, swimming from Tobago to Trinidad? Where them? There's a breakdown of the Sea Bridge in this country. Who's swimming from Tobago to Trinidad? Where's Farley? Where's my good friend Diane Haddad? Where are you? Are you all swimming? Why is the deafening silence? Because it was not too long ago when the PNM was in government, some of them make their political name out of the Sea Bridge. They make their name out of the Sea Bridge. It was a PNM government, understanding the challenges of the Sea Bridge, went to Australia, get access to a loan facility, and that is why today we can boast of the MV, the APT James, the Buku Reef, as well as the Galleon's Passage to supplement the Sea Bridge. Before we left office, there was an RFP that was published, that was approved by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago for the acquisition and the purchase of a brand new cargo ferry for the Sea Bridge. Today, they brought some MV Blue Wave Harmony, and before it can make its first voyage, its hull has been damaged in Scarborough. The Blue Wave has now turned into a blue blight on the Sea Bridge, because all of them are a bunch of blights. I grew up in Paramin, and I grew up around old people. And when you are blight, get access to blue soap or a blue and tag it on you. I think the people of Tobago require that right now. Bathe with blue soap, because this blue wave is going to continue to be a blight on the Sea Bridge. And what we have coming out of the THA and the government is just assurances: stand by, wait, have some patience. That is what Farley Augustine is saying to the people. Shelves are being emptied at this point in time. The construction sector has grown to a halt in Tobago. Life has come to a standstill in Tobago. And Farley Augustine and his cronies and his friends in Port of Spain telling you, stand by, have some patience. And the Minister of Works and Infrastructure cannot give nothing but assurances that we are going to rectify the problem. And whilst all of this is happening, the business sector in Tobago is crying out to the government to have this situation addressed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am calling upon the Minister of Works and Infrastructure I am calling upon the Chief Secretary and to let them know that all of these empty assurances are not putting an end to the disaster that they have brought upon the people of Tobago by their political incompetence and mismanagement. This situation has to be addressed. They must tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago what is the status with respect to the RFP that the PNM had prepared and put out for the acquisition of a brand new vessel, cargo vessel, for the people of Tobago. They must give concrete assurances and timeline as to when they are going to bring back stability to the sea bridge. They must come out and account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Stop giving empty assurances. Stop trying to avoid timelines. And perhaps I will ask Fali Augustine, THA Chief Secretary, that he can invite his friend Watson Duke to swim from Tobago to Trinidad, and that might be the solution that they are looking for. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MP Gonzalez, for that very spirited explanation of what is happening in the areas under your purview. We are now going to move to the usual question and answer segment. Marie, I see you with your microphone. I suspect you will be leading all questions today. But please feel free. Just let us know what your question is and who you would like to speak to.
All right, okay. We'll start with MP Gonzalez.
I suspected you would want to do that.
Yes.
Morning, Marie Fletcher, Guardian Media.
Morning.
Okay, so let's start with the Minister of Homeland Security, because you would have started with that in your presentation, right? In a government or a UNC press conference yesterday at UNC headquarters, the minister would have stated that members of the public are not aware of everything that would have transpired when it comes to the death of Joshua Samaru, right? There was one clip that was circulating, and he's basically saying that, well, the public doesn't know what happened before or what happened after, right? Which is alluding to the fact that there are things that are unknown to us. So as a former Minister of National Security, I wanted to know your thoughts on that and the perception that is being given to the public, or the lack of assurance, as you mentioned there.
The minister is playing smart with foolishness, because if there is something that the public should know, in addition to what they have seen via the CCTV camera footage that was widely circulated, then there's nothing that prevents the TTPS, there's nothing that prevents the minister from putting that information out in the public domain so that the people can come to their own conclusion. What the minister is saying is that, listen, don't come to your conclusion based on what you have seen on social media or on the CCTV cameras and footage that was made public. Don't believe it. Because we have something that says and paints a different picture, but we can't share it with you because there is an investigation and this information might be needed in evidence. There's nothing in law, absolutely nothing in law, that support that stance that he's pretending to be hiding behind. And as long as he continues to hold to that position, the people of Trinidad and Tobago aren't fools. They aren't fools. And to tell them what they are saying, don't believe it, is an insult to the intelligence of the people of this country. And I want to tell the minister that if in fact he has information that paints a different picture, then it is incumbent upon him to put that information out in the public domain, because as long as they refuse to do so, they are undermining the trust and the confidence that the people should have in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So if you're hiding behind that, don't believe it, because there is something 10 minutes or 15 minutes that we are aware that we cannot share with you. You are playing smart with foolishness, and you are taking the people of Trinidad and Tobago for fools, and we aren't fools.
Well, maybe through any of your national security sources, have you come across any details that he may be saying is not being shown to the public?
Yes, I have information that I am not prepared to share, but I am...
Why aren't you prepared to share it?
No, that is not my responsibility. I'm not in government, and I'm not a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I am calling upon them to do their work and to level with the people of Trinidad and Tobago in a very transparent and a respectable manner. And there is nothing in law, there is nothing in the standing orders of the police service that support what the minister is saying. If you have information that paints a different picture, then show it. It will not undermine the quality of evidence. It will not undermine the administration of justice. It will not undermine the integrity of the investigation. You are playing smart with foolishness, and you need to stop it.
But you're no longer the Minister of Public Utilities, but you did say you have evidence there to share. And we're also seeing former ministers sharing evidence even before the Minister of Housing could share it himself.
Sharing evidence.
Sharing information, sorry about that, right? So, if you're willing to share stuff about WASA, why not share stuff about national security?
I received information, and all I am saying is that the government and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they have a responsibility to be transparent with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is their responsibility. We, as the opposition, we have asked questions. We have created the platform for them to come and assure the population that there's going to be a full and transparent investigation into the matter. We have created the platform, and they have invoked standing orders not to do it.
Your thoughts on the Samaru family and supporters calling for the resignation of the Commissioner of Police based on his handling or the lack thereof of the officers involved?
I don't know if the resignation of the Commissioner of Police is going to solve the problem. I understand there are a lot of emotions involved, and a lot of people are emotionally charged in this matter, and the calls for resignation is not going to get to the bottom of this. I think the Commissioner of Police should be careful of the advice he's getting from the Minister of Homeland Security. He's the last person he should be taking advice from, because he needs advice for himself. But the Commissioner of Police should perhaps try and get an expert communications consultant to advise him on this very charged matter, because the continued bungling of this is not going to augur well for the public confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Look at what happened. Last week Sunday, there was a small group of protesters showed up in front of the parliament to voice their concern. They were not armed, they were not posing a risk to national security, they were not posing risk to the parliament building. They just came on the pavement to express their concerns. You respond by sending the riot squad. I mean, you got another opportunity to go to the protesters yourself and speak to them, to give them assurances. And you did not seize upon that opportunity. You send the riot squad. How is that going to instill confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? So what I'm seeing is continued bungling of this matter from a communications perspective, with a headless Minister of Homeland Security who cannot even speak one sentence in defense of himself.
Okay, moving on to the next topic. Now, immediately when you mentioned 426, of course, it took me right back to 2022 when you would have mentioned 426, right?
Managers.
And those were the managers, right? I mean, you mentioned salaries such as 45,000, but the former CEO, while you were minister, had a salary of 100,000. So some may be saying that maybe 45,000 is not that severe or that large of a number if we had persons receiving $100,000. But some of these titles, I guess it was a surprise to you because they weren't previously. So is it that the 426 persons that were employed at that time, because it's more now, because if they reversed what you plan to do, is it that they rehired some of these persons? Are you aware of any of these employees? And you don't have the list of the names, but did they bring back some of the persons that
No,
were
they did not.
planned to release?
They did not. From my recollection, when I served as Minister of Public Utilities, Twiggy was not employed in WASA. Stark Entertainment wasn't employed in WASA. I can remember Matara being employed in WASA. So they're not the same people.
And I'm trying to understand the figures.
And by the way, that salary that you referred to for the former CEO, that was negotiated by the Chief Personnel Office. All right? He came from, he was an experienced water expert that came from Jamaica. He left his family, he left his home to come to Trinidad and Tobago to take up this position. He did not ask for his salaries to be paid in US dollars, as most people were doing. He accepted that in TT dollars. And it was just a matter of $10,000 more that was paid to acting CEOs in the past. As a matter of fact, when they did their international benchmarking, to attract the best around the world, you had to pay upwards of 150,000 TT per month. And Mr. Halliday, a well-known expert in water management in the Caribbean, came here and accepted a salary of $100,000. And if the UNC had any problem with it, then the acting CEO today would not have been paid the same salary. They continued paying the same salary to their acting CEO.
I remember at the time when the Prime Minister made the announcement after ripping up the plan, she said that this would save the country
$30
million annually. But you are saying now that these salaries are mounting over $70,000.
$70 million.
$70
million. And just remember that I filed those questions in November last year. So the question was for a period from April the 29th to November 2025. And as of November, it was 426 persons that were recruited inside of the organization. The information I have is that it is upwards of 500 persons that are employed in the organization from the elections of April the 28th. And it's coming at a price tag of over $70 million on an annual basis. So she ripped apart a WASA transformation plan, gallivanting herself to the national community with ministers applauding you, and sold it to you, the citizens, that is going to save you, the taxpayers, $30 million. And in the background, brought in 500 people that will cost you $70 million. The maths ain't mathsing. But that is UNC governance for you. They campaign on lies and they govern with lies. And by the way, I am asking the names of those persons and the recruitment process that was used to employ each and every one of those persons. And I will work until I get that information. They could run, but that information I'm going to get to the bottom of it so that you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, will know their behavior.
But based on your information, why was Mr. Gibson removed from his position?
Because that information that I just revealed here to you this morning, I understand that some of it was spearheaded by him. So it was one of the reasons why he was escorted out of the compound, because obviously it is bringing now embarrassment to the board and to the government. But you asked about him. Remember that the CEO that Minister Padarat would have walked into WASA with, an employee, by the way, a low-level manager inside of WASA. And when he was appointed Minister of Public Utilities, he went into WASA accompanied by this low-level manager. And I asked at a news conference, tell us, who is Jivan Joseph? He said nothing. Barry Padarat, who likes to talk and expatiate himself. And I asked the question, tell us, who is Jivan Joseph? And he said nothing. And weeks after, when the appointed CEO of WASA was ceremoniously dismissed, we heard that Jivan Joseph was appointed CEO of WASA. And his tenure was short-lived because he himself had to be escorted out of WASA. And one day I will tell you why.
Why not tell us now? Why not tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago
I can't give you everything. You have to digest what I give today.
I think the people have digested and they're waiting to hear more.
I don't want the people of Trinidad and Tobago to be choked by the political iniquity of the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
Do you think taxpayers need to wait any longer?
They will wait. They are very patient. Let them digest what I revealed today. And I want to tell them, stand by. I will tell them one day why Jivan Joseph was fired in WASA and why Mervyn Gibson was escorted out of the compound. Because I warned this country, when she ripped apart the WASA transformation plan, I warned them that corruption will be returned to WASA.
Have you spoken to either two gentlemen?
Me?
Yeah.
Talk to who?
Either of the two persons.
I have better
You said
things
you
to
know
do.
why.
I have better things to do.
Okay. Now, this wasn't brought up. However, I wanted to ask the opposition their thoughts on the two motions being brought in the other house last week, and Senate President saying that he don't think it was sufficient enough to fit the threshold of being motions of privilege, and also if any member of the lower house plans to do the same against the Prime Minister.
No. The opposition, as a matter of fact, as Chief Whip, I filed a motion of privileges against the Prime Minister and against the Leader of Government Business, Minister of Public Utilities, MP Barry Padarat, and I asked the Speaker for them to be brought before the Privileges Committee of the House of Representatives, and I expect a ruling on that on Friday.
Okay.
On this Friday. So stand by.
But what is your expectation, seeing that in the other house it was denied?
When it comes to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, I have little expectations.
So why bring the motion if you think it will be denied?
Because I have to do it and put it on record. So that that is my duty. It is the responsibility of the opposition to do its work. So when those questions are filed and those motions are filed, let's see how they respond to it. If I don't do it, I'll be derelict in our responsibility as an opposition. So we will discharge our constitutional function as an opposition. But wait and see how they deal with it. But don't be surprised that the outcome of it may not be different from what occurred in the other place.
Just in terms of the sea bridge, I know you would have mentioned blue, but I think the people of Tobago clearly showed you that they have been using blue. Hence the results that we saw recently.
Yeah, blight.
The study code is blue in Tobago, right? That's what we heard from the Chief Secretary.
Right now they are
based
seeing
on that,
blue.
you would have mentioned the proposal for a new vessel. So just a little more information on that. So that ended, well, before the election.
Yes.
The last status of that was what?
That the RFP was approved by the government, and it was placed in the public domain, the world at large, so that we can begin the search for a new vessel for the sea bridge for Tobago to transport cargo to and from Tobago. So I'm just simply asking the government that we have reached far, the last PNM government has reached far in the procurement of a new cargo vessel for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and perhaps they should give a status on this.
I know the opposition also called for the removal of all of the ministers in the Ministry of Housing. Yesterday I would have spoken to one of the ministers in the ministry that rubbished the idea.
Who's that?
This is Senator Philip Alexander.
No, Philip Alexander is busy shadowing Jolene John. And he is busy, he has a fascination for Hans Devines. I don't know what is that about. But he hasn't been doing any work inside of there. So I don't know whether or not that question should have been placed to him.
Yeah. But it was placed to all of the ministers that's in the ministry. This was the minister that responded. And well, he said he considered it stupid talk, and that he said stupid talk. It's not a single person in the PNM with the moral authority to call anyone to do anything in response to being called to that. So that's why I wanted to hear a response.
Ask him how much houses he built since he has assumed office. Ask him what has he achieved in the Ministry of Housing since appointed junior non-percent minister.
In addition to the ministers being removed, opposition thoughts on the chairman, Mr. Khan.
Mr. Khan should explain to the people of Trinidad and Tobago whether that latest diabolical policy that he imposed upon owners of HDC houses was approved by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago. When it was approved by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, why wasn't there sufficient consultation with the people of Trinidad and Tobago? And what discussion he had with his line minister before asking his board to take this very important decision? He has questions to answer, and he must explain to the population whether he consulted with his line minister and got the approval of his line minister on this matter, because based on what we have read so far is that the line minister was blindsided yet again by decisions taken by the Feroz Khan's board. So he needs to explain this, whether or not it was approved by the cabinet, when it was approved by the cabinet, and why wasn't there consultation with HDC stakeholders. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. As always, the opposition will be presenting itself to the public and to the media to answer questions truthfully and to the best of our ability. And we look forward to joining with you again soon. Have a good day.